From a wall of water in Israel that flooded this barren riverbed, and massive tsunami waves in Russia that filled this hotel courtyard, to a raging river in India that swallowed an apartment complex, and a volcano in Japan that covered the skies in a thick coat of ash. Here are 8 nature moments you wouldn't believe if not filmed. According to the Indian government, flash floods impact nearly 29,000 square miles of the country each year. They claim an average of 1,600 lives and cause millions, if not billions, of dollars in damage. Some simply lose their crops. Others lose their homes. On July 10th of 2023, several days of heavy rain led to some of the worst flash flooding the state of Himachal Pradesh had ever seen. In the small town of Kulu, residents watched in horror as violent rapids raced down the Beas River. The water quickly eroded the banks, causing these buildings to collapse and disappear.
लोग 4 मंजिल बिल्डिंग का पता लगा माजी कहाँ गई बनाते साल लगा दिया जाते जाते एक मिनट का सेकंड का
Thankfully, nobody was inside the buildings when they fell into the water. Looking back, you can see where the water eroded the banks and exposed the building's support columns. Unfortunately, floods like these are a harsh reality that people in northern India contend with every year. Take this guy from Sange, India, who came uncomfortably close to a watery grave. While floodwaters ravaged the town of Kulu, he found himself on equally eroded banks about 30 miles south. Lucky for him, a good Samaritan was there to save his life.
रस्सी फेंको रस्सी आ जाएगा बच्ची का बच्चा ये क्यों बना रहा है अब डालूंगा गाना पता नहीं किस रूप में आकर नारायण मिल जाएगा बचा लिया वार
July of 2023 was devastating for Himachal Pradesh. According to reports, flash floods and 20 major landslides wiped away 40 shops and 30 houses between Kulu and Sange alone. The water closed over 1,300 roads, damaged or destroyed 40 bridges, and claimed the lives of 31 people. Point Place is a small neighborhood in the northeastern corner of Toledo, Ohio. Oddly, tornadoes are baked into the area's history. On April 11th of 1965, they were nearly wiped off the map when a 240-mile-per-hour tornado tore through the neighborhood. It was part of the Palm Sunday outbreak of 1965, which saw 55 twisters touch down in the U.S. over 40 hours. Those who were alive to remember the 1965 storm got to relive the horrors on June 15th of 2023 when an EF2 tornado spun up over Point Place. One resident was brave enough to stand outside and record the storm from beginning to end. Watch how things escalate from a cloudy day in Ohio to a full-fledged nightmare. Thankfully, our camera person did the smart thing and moved inside as the storm passed over their home. They walked to the back and continued filming through the rear door. Once it passed, they stepped back out to observe the damage left in its wake. It's been over a year since the Point Place storm, and some residents are still struggling to recover. According to Toledo City officials, the EF2 twister impacted 150 people. 12 local businesses were either completely destroyed or sustained significant damage. In Arabic, the word wadi refers to the dry riverbeds you'll find in this part of the world. During the rainy season, spectators will gather on the banks to watch the desolate valley suddenly fill with water. On January 17th of 2020, flood enthusiasts gathered near a wadi in the Negev desert in southern Israel. Typically, the area's arid climate produces very little rain, only about 24 millimeters all year. So, in early 2020, when the skies over Israel dropped record-setting rainfall, the extra water turned this empty valley into a fast-flowing river. Now, it may seem slow at first, but just wait until things pick up. Thankfully, everyone inside the wadi could scamper to higher ground before the water swept them off their feet.
הנה הגל מתקרב.
It's wild to think how quickly this riverbed went from bone dry to flooded. It makes you appreciate Mother Nature's power and how she can suddenly turn on a dime. In early January of 2020, parts of central Israel saw nearly 3 inches of rainfall in just 2 hours. Parts of Tel Aviv were completely underwater, and rescue workers could hardly keep up with those in need. Much of that water likely flowed toward the Negev desert and other parts of southern Israel. According to the USGS, Japan records more earthquakes than any other country in the world. The islands sit on an active seismic area and make up the northwestern corner of the Pacific Ring of Fire. The most famous of those earthquakes is the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. The 9.0 magnitude tremor was the most powerful earthquake to strike Japan and the fourth strongest recorded since modern seismography began in 1900. On February 14th of 2021, almost 10 years to the date, an aftershock of the 2011 earthquake struck the same region. While this one wasn't nearly as strong, it still caused widespread damage and sent millions of people running for cover. As for these two cats, they decided to hang out on their owner's bed and enjoy the ride. Thankfully, no cats or homeowners were harmed while making this video. The earthquake eventually passes, and the non-scaredy cat never moves from its spot on the bed. Now this video begs the question, can animals detect earthquakes before they happen? The earliest example comes from ancient Greece, where weasels, snakes, rats, and insects all fled their homes several days before a destructive earthquake. As far as modern science is concerned, all we have is anecdotal evidence suggesting animals can predict natural disasters. They've displayed odd behavior in the days and even weeks before an earthquake, though there's no way of connecting the two. According to the USGS, most of the people pursuing this phenomenon are scientists from China and Japan. We'd love to know what these cats were up to before the earthquake struck. In June of 2022, Yellowstone National Park experienced historic-level flooding. Record-setting rainfall and rapid snowmelt caused widespread devastation in the park's northern regions. The small town of Gardner, Montana may have gotten it the worst. Since its founding in 1880, Gardner has been the main entrance into Yellowstone National Park. It sits on the banks of the Yellowstone River, which swelled significantly as all that extra water raced through. One unlucky resident could only stand and watch as their riverside home floated away like a sailboat. TJ and Victoria Britton had lived in that home for 16 years. Both could feel the house shaking the night before, but chalked it up to trees floating downriver. The following morning, they realized the embankment was crumbling and the home was minutes away from falling in. TJ said he wasn't home when the house collapsed. He was out gathering supplies when he heard the news over the radio. While driving through Corwin Springs, another small town on the Yellowstone River, TJ noticed a crowd gathering near a bridge. He stopped to see what all the fuss was about. That's when he spotted his house floating about 7 miles from its foundation.
Hit that pylon.
According to the National Park Service, the Yellowstone flood was classified as a 500-year event. That means the chances of it happening in a given year are only 0.02%, or once every 500 years. Between June 10th and June 13th of 2022, Yellowstone's rainfall was 400% higher than expected. The river itself swelled to its highest level in the past 100 years. As for TJ and Victoria, they said the community was more than supportive. It felt good knowing that they could lean on those around them in times of need. Mount Shinmoidake is an active stratovolcano in the Kagoshima prefecture of Kyushu, Japan. It's part of the Mount Kirishima cluster, a group of over 20 quaternary volcanoes north of Kagoshima Bay. On January 19th of 2011, Mount Shinmoidake came to life after being dormant for about a year. It began with a shock wave that was felt upwards of 7 miles away and a burst of ashfall that spread about 19 miles to the southeast. Then, a larger eruption on the 22nd sent projectiles over 200 meters into the air. Everything came to a head on January 26th when the Earthquake Research Institute detected a massive explosion at Mount Shinmoidake. Watch as the ash plume stretches 7,000 feet into the air and basically blocks out the sky. If you thought that was stunning, wait until you see what it looked like later that night. The January of 2011 eruption was Mount Shinmoidake's most powerful eruption since 1959. It forced local authorities to raise the volcano alert level to 3 out of 5, prompting those within a mile of the mountain to evacuate. Thankfully, nobody was hurt during the eruption, nor did it cause any significant damage. However, it did cause several headaches as 4 domestic flights were canceled. The buildup of ash on train tracks also forced Japan Rail to halt several regional train operations. The scary thing about flash floods is that they can truly come out of nowhere. These 2 Saudi Arabian drivers learned that lesson the hard way on August 18th of 2019 while parked in a wadi in the country's southern region. It's unclear what these men were doing or why somebody was filming them. Perhaps they wanted to get cool clips of their cars during the flood and underestimated how much water was heading their way. Looking closely, you can see the white sedan driving up an incline, meaning they were safe from the water. They're lucky they got out when they did, as the entire valley was about to fill with water. Most of Saudi Arabia has a desert climate, with the exception of the southwest, which leans more towards semi-arid. That explains the vegetation in this clip. While the rest of Saudi Arabia will only see 150 millimeters of rain each year, the southwestern region will get between 400 and 600 millimeters, or 15 and 24 inches, annually. As you can imagine, when a solid portion of that rain falls all at once, it leads to instant flash flooding, as seen in this video. Sochi, Russia is a resort city on the Black Sea coast. It's home to about 466,000 people and is famous for hosting the controversy-filled 2014 Winter Olympics. On December 1st of 2021, a powerful storm system formed over the Black Sea. It sent massive waves barreling toward the Olympic city, which this man was lucky enough to capture from his hotel balcony. Watch as tsunami-like waves quickly overwhelm the barrier walls and flood the park below. Unfortunately, information in Russia isn't easy to come by, so we're not sure how much damage the floodwaters caused. The Mediterranean region experiences storms similar to Atlantic hurricanes and the Pacific typhoons. They're typically called Mediterranean hurricanes or medicanes. On rare occasions, they can grow to be as strong as a Category 1 storm. Fun fact: medicanes rarely grow to hurricane status because the region's water isn't warm or expansive enough to sustain a true hurricane. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another just like it, be sure to click the link on screen now. As always, thanks for watching and be sure to tune in next time.